Location, location, location. This is the one mantra every property investor is talking about. So in this video, I want to discuss the factors that actually make a good location. So if you are a buy-to-let investor or a HMO investor or an investor that does buy, refurbish, refinance, or even an investor that flips homes and is then looking to sell this property to homeowners as the end market, you need to watch this video. Whenever there is a real estate boom, everyone is trying to get onto the property ladder. Everyone is trying to buy properties, and whichever property that comes on the market, whether it is a very good one, good location, or not a good location, they still want to just buy it. But what then happens during a downturn cycle, like I say, there is a boom, bust, then boom. Whenever there is a down cycle, it is only those investors that actually picked up properties in the right locations that do not suffer from negative equity or whatever other consequences the downturn generally has. So location has a very important role for a property investor. Think about it. If you're buying a property, you're not just buying the house, the four walls with the roof, you're also buying the land. Now, the internal structure of the property, you can always remodel or you can always change, you can always refurbish it. But the land, you can't really move that. So the land holds a lot of value. That even if you were going to break down the house and make a high-rise building, what matters more is where this land is situated. And oftentimes, the location of the property is the biggest driving factor for pricing in that neighborhood. It's a simple case of supply and demand. If you've got one street which is considered to be of the best locations, but you've only got one house to be sold in that location, then of course it's going to have a lot of demand. Just to give you one statistics of the Office of National Statistics, that in 2021, the biggest buyers were millennials. And to look at what it is that made them want to buy those houses that they did in the first place, they would generally just come down with three major reasons. The first one is that it has great transportation links. The second one is as well high-ranked schools in the neighborhood. And the third one is that the neighborhood is a good one. There is involvement and it's a good neighborhood with less crime and good people around there who love their neighborhood. But you also have to understand that a good location now doesn't mean it's always going to be a good location, or a bad location now doesn't mean it's always going to be a bad location. Think about it. If Range Rover was to open one of its large factories or large offices into a small town, and suddenly that's going to attract maybe 100,000 employees of their company to that city, suddenly there's going to be a big impact onto their economy, because 100,000 people have just moved into this city. There's going to be more spending, more people are going to be wanting to buy houses there, and the rents are going to go up because of supply and demand. All this plays a big impact on what's the future potential of the city. Are there any regeneration schemes on this area, on this neighborhood? Are people investing money here? Is there going to be any big changes? Are there schools that are being closed down? Any massive developments? Any schools opening up? Stuff like that also really matters when choosing the right location. So let's head on to the 5 factors that really make a good location. The first factor is centrality. How far are you from the city center? So if you want to live in London city center, you're going to be paying a lot more than if you were going to go to the outskirts. In the city center, there's a lot happening. You're closer to work, you're closer to convenience stores, you're closer to all these transportation links, you're closer to where everyone wants to live. Everyone wants to live in the city center to be closer to work. So the closer you are to city center, the more it is that you will be paying, because it's a good location. Essentially, you are in the city center rather than living in the suburbs far away, taking you 1.5 hours or 1 hour to get to the city center. When you're in the city center, you've got convenience stores near you, you've got supermarkets, you've got transportation links, train stations and bus stops. When you're in the city center, you've got entertainment near you, and you've got food shops and everything near you, which will take you a couple of minutes walk and you will be there. The second quite important factor for a good location is the neighborhood of the property. If you're a developer who is building houses to sell them, you would find that it's easy to sell houses when you close off to any transportation links. If you're very close to the motorway, so the homeowner, your end buyer or the end consumer of the product will prefer to live there because he knows it's going to take him a couple of seconds to get onto the motorway and head off to work, so that accessibility is there. The neighborhood's appearance and amenities really matter as well. If I'm driving into a neighborhood and I see really grown grasses on everyone's houses, front yards, if I see that there's a lot of rubbish in that neighborhood, maybe I even see cigarettes or drugs on that street, that neighborhood doesn't seem so attractive anymore, because even if it's a rental property, who's going to want to live in that kind of neighborhood? Surely someone who prefers that kind of neighborhood, perhaps someone who does drugs around there or does not really care about their appearance of their own property, doesn't mind having overgrown grass. You can also judge the neighborhood's popularity by seeing how long properties stay on the market. If you're looking to buy a house which has been on the market for 2.5 years and nobody's been willing to buy it, then surely that neighborhood is not such an attractive one. But if you see a property that's on the market and it's been only a week since you asked for a viewing, and the day you go for a viewing there are like 8 people there wanting to view, then that is definitely a positive sign that this neighborhood is an interesting one that does not just interest you, but rather interests a lot of other people too. So it is a popular neighborhood. And when I talk about the amenities, that neighborhood also has access to convenience stores, supermarkets. If you want to get dry cleaning done, you don't have to go all the way to the city center. You've got some in that neighborhood as well. If you've got good, well-ranked schools in that neighborhood, that's always also a plus sign. The third factor for a very good location is the developments in that area. If that neighborhood has plans for building up new shopping malls or high-rise apartment buildings or an office center, that's going to attract more quality people towards that neighborhood. It's also going to drive up the value of your property over in time. So just to give you an example, Digbeth right now is known to be quite an industrialist area, but being so close to the city center, that now the planning officials are allowing people to convert their properties into high-rise buildings. Just opposite from where I am, there's a block with a planning permission for 131 apartments. So if he builds that 131 apartments, for sure it's going to attract a lot of good people into this neighborhood. Second thing is that the officials are also going to allow other industrial units to now be converted, because there's just one up the road with planning permission for 131 apartments. So my point is that any regeneration schemes being introduced into that neighborhood, any new developments that are going to be introduced to that neighborhood, is a very positive sign. And that also factors for a good location, because you're buying low essentially, and then you're going to be renting very high with a flock of people coming to live in that neighborhood. The fourth consideration you should have for a good location is where exactly is your plot located. If you are on a very busy high street where there is so much noise and traffic and people hooting and all that, perhaps your tenant might not enjoy living there for a long period of time because of all that noise. So with having all that noise, it does get uncomfortable. But again, if you're in such a good location, it might work as a HMO. People who are just looking to live in a room, and students who perhaps wouldn't mind the noise. So it all comes into what specific thing are you looking for. You need to know who your end target is. Now, if you're developing properties to sell it to an end user, the end user may not want to live next to a high street where there's so much noise. So you should consider all of these factors when buying a property. And the last tip I have for you is to consider the space and the size of the plot. So if I was to give you an example of 2 blocks of flats, one is 9 apartments, second one is 9 apartments, and you are looking to just buy an income generating property. The first one, 9 apartments where the rooms are quite small, but the property is in top tip condition and looks very beautiful and does not require any further works. You perhaps have it in vacant possession or not, doesn't matter. You just you're gonna get tenants very easily and you're gonna enjoy your yields after. However, you've got the other block of 9 flats, which is double the size in the first property that you sold. The rooms are a lot more generous, bathrooms, so everything is much spacious, but it is still 9 apartments, similar like the first one. However, in this one, it is slightly run down, but the prices are still the same. The prices are exactly the same, and you may need to spend 50 grand to do up the 9 apartments. Which one it is that you'd actually go for? If you were going to go for the first one, it's a good option. You might enjoy some yields. But if you go for the second one, which is slightly run down, you're going to have more capital appreciation. Rather than that 50 grand you're going to spend just to paint the property, change the carpets, maybe add a new kitchen, it's going to have a bigger impact into the end value. Because if you're going to sell the apartments individually, these apartments are more spacious. So if an end user is coming to see the property, if they were to compare this one and the first one, they'll see this one is much bigger. The overall gross internal area is so much more. So you get more value for your money. So when it comes to appreciation, you can sell it at a higher price. Even when it comes to rental, surely you could get 50 quid more. Because it's more spacious, tenants will appreciate that. So to summarize, these are the few things I look out for when I'm shopping real estate. The neighborhood is so important, amenities is so important, where exactly you are, how far you are from the central is so important, the space, the gross internal area of the property is so important, where schools are so important. All these things come into consideration. And it's not just these, a lot of other things that come into places like your spreadsheet, how long ago the property was built. But when it comes to factoring the location, it falls under this. So I hope you have enjoyed this content and can make value out of this YouTube video. If you have, please do subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will see you in the next video.